Experts who know how to help, how to defend against Shahid drones. Our teams are already in the Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and on the way to Kuwait.
The axis of modern geopolitics has undergone a sudden and drastic shift in an entirely unexpected direction, northward, over the past 48 hours. As tensions between Washington and Tehran force the entire world to hold its breath, the Middle East's famously static balance of power is being shaken. Yet, emerging from this global chaos as the most unexpected and strategic winner is Ukraine. A single question echoes through Arab capitals these days. How can an asymmetric threat be stopped against a colossal power using limited technology and proper resource management? Kyiv, which once merely awaited military aid packages from the West, has now transformed into a strategic think tank, exporting its combat experience, drone doctrines, and cyber defense methods to Middle Eastern countries. This new global landscape has been established as Ukraine has grown into a giant not only on the front lines, but also in the defense industry. The fact that the Leningrad region has been paralyzed by non-stop drone attacks for a full 7 days is the most concrete and shocking proof that Kyiv has now moved its own long-range destruction systems into mass production without relying on external sources. As Russia's defense lines crack under internal leaks and logistical weaknesses, Moscow's eagerly prepared spring offensive plans are rendered obsolete on the drawing board before they even begin, thanks to Ukraine's active defense and precision operations. It is not just the front lines. The systematic destruction of logistics centers and railway networks behind the front lines is reducing the Russian army's mobility to zero, while demonstrating Ukraine's expertise in resource management. By developing its own domestic software, electronic warfare modules, and AI-supported targeting systems, Ukraine is no longer a nation begging for ammunition from abroad, but a player on the battlefield setting the rules of the game with its own systems. The atmosphere of panic within Russia signals not only a military, but also a societal breakdown. Kyiv's strategic strikes are shattering Moscow's invincibility propaganda right before its own people's eyes. Let's seal this point with a historical example. Just as small but disciplined city-states subdued massive empires through strategy in ancient times, today Ukraine is combining the capabilities of the digital age with a total defense mindset. By going beyond external aid to build a self-sufficient, massive defense industry ecosystem, Ukraine has now risen to a position where it tells its allies what they need to do. The most recent data reflected in intelligence reports clearly documents that the Russian army has reached a logistical dead end and is experiencing a command and control paralysis within its ranks. As a result, we are witnessing an era where history is being rewritten, not by the side with the greatest quantity of ammunition on the battlefield, but by the side that holds the intellect and technology to manage that ammunition. The collapse of Russia's latest offensive efforts against Ukraine's steel wall is a result of Kyiv's excellent resource management and its superiority in the propaganda war. In this new security architecture stretching from the turbulent waters of the Middle East to the Baltic borders, Ukraine is no longer merely a symbol of resistance. It is a strategic mastermind shaping the course of world military history. This strategic transformation has proven to the world how Kyiv has gained expertise on the global stage and has now entered an irreversible path to victory. For wars are not won solely in the trenches. They are won by the technology, intellect, and the will to produce one's own systems behind those trenches. The level Ukraine has reached today is the greatest geopolitical treasure trove of 2026. In military literature, we call this asymmetric maturation. The Arab world, particularly the Gulf states, despite possessing billions of dollars worth of advanced armored vehicles, witnessed firsthand during recent crises just how vulnerable they are to low-cost drone attacks. However, as of April 1, 2026, the picture has changed. The anti-drone defense and swarm drone doctrines that Ukraine developed over the past 4 years on the front lines, with death breathing down their necks, have now become the most sought-after strategic product for these wealthy militaries. Ukraine is no longer just selling ammunition or UAVs. It is exporting the new laws of digital warfare. There is a single item on the agenda of the military delegations visiting Kyiv: How did Ukraine overcome Russia's massive electronic warfare barriers? This knowledge has become as valuable as oil for the security of the Middle East. Kyiv's role as a mentor is also fundamentally shaking Russia's traditional arms hegemony in that region. Capitals that once awaited S-400 systems from Moscow are now lining up to incorporate Kyiv's AI-powered targeting software into their own arsenals. Ukraine has transformed from a victim seeking aid into an architect shaping global security. Look, the real event strengthening Ukraine's hand in the Middle East is unfolding on the ground, in Russia's deepest heartland, in Leningrad. The Leningrad region has been under a relentless drone storm for exactly 7 days. Russian air defense systems cannot stop these drones in their own backyard, at their most strategic ports. This is not merely a military operation. It is a declaration of strategic freedom to the world. Ukraine is now overcoming the restrictions imposed by its Western allies out of escalation concerns, using systems it has produced itself. A Ukraine that manufactures its own engines, proprietary software, and explosives is not a structure dependent on its allies, but a power establishing an equal strategic partnership. The massive fuel depots burning in Leningrad and the paralyzed logistics lines serve as proof that the Russian army is defenseless not only in Ukraine, but on its own mainland, at its very heart. This unshakable state of defenselessness turns Russia's claims of a planned spring offensive into a propaganda bubble. After all, for an army that cannot defend its own home to launch a counteroffensive is military suicide. Reports from the rear clearly indicate that the Russian army is being driven toward a logistical suicide. Ukraine's precision strikes are not merely targeting tanks, they are hitting the railway junctions transporting fuel for those tanks, ammunition depots, and even repair workshops. In modern warfare, the numerical superiority of an army left without ammunition and fuel transforms into nothing more than a massive logistical burden and a pile of flesh. This panic within the Russian command structure is the real reason why 236 attacks on the battlefield failed to advance even a single meter. Intelligence reports confirm that Russian soldiers are now fighting not only the enemy, but also their own inadequate logistics lines and broken command chains. Kyiv, however, combines this situation with excellent resource management. On the battlefield, it is Ukraine that controls time and space, not the bullets. By deploying its own indigenous electronic warfare systems to the front lines, Kyiv suppresses Russia's infamous offensives with digital noise before the tanks even start their engines. This is akin to surgically removing an army's nervous system. Let's deepen our analysis with an example from history. Just as Napoleon experienced that logistical collapse in the depths of Russia in 1812, today the Russian army is facing the same fate in Ukraine's digital steppes. However, this time the roles have reversed, and the technology factor has come into play. Ukraine has combined the capabilities of the digital age with a total defense mindset. Every strike, every drone attack is crowned with a global propaganda victory, fueling the atmosphere of panic within Russia. The level of self-sufficiency Kyiv has achieved is the greatest geopolitical rupture of 2026. Debates over whether foreign aid will arrive have ceased to be a matter of life or death for Ukraine and have become a strategic choice. Ukraine, which produces its own systems, exports its technology to the Middle East, and has logistically paralyzed a massive occupying force, is no longer merely a symbol of resistance. It is the very author and implementer of the new global military doctrine. In this new security architecture stretching from the hot waters of the Middle East to the Baltic borders, Ukraine has risen from the position of a recipient of aid to that of a game-changing mastermind. With every day that the regions Russia views as its ammunition depot and energy heart lie in ruins, Kyiv's expertise shines even brighter. Every report of an explosion from Leningrad drives Arab capital to show greater interest in Kyiv's defense technology offices, leading to a flood of cooperation offers. The critical point here is that Ukraine has crowned this success with excellent resource management. By utilizing its limited budget and resources in the most effective way against the cumbersome, centralized structure of a massive army, Kyiv is also writing the textbook for the modern defense economy. Today, Middle Eastern countries are not merely purchasing weapons from Kyiv. They are acquiring the Formula for success on how to counter massive and asymmetric threats with a limited budget. The true secret behind Ukraine's indispensable partnership lies not in the quality of the weapons sent by the West, but in how Ukraine integrates these weapons into its own national ecosystem. Drones striking Russia's deep hinterlands, such as Leningrad, are not merely flying explosives. They are digital spears equipped with sensor evasion algorithms, written by local software engineers in Kyiv. The atmosphere of panic within Russia stems not only from a military weakness, but also from an inability to produce a response to this digital superiority. Modern wars are no longer won by sheer firepower. They are won by the data that makes the ammunition smart. With this 7-day siege in Leningrad, Ukraine sent the world the following message: if you cannot produce your own technology, you cannot sever your enemy's supply lines thousands of kilometers behind the front lines. This new technological bridge established by Arab countries in the Middle East with Ukraine is, in fact, a bridge to independence. Countries updating their defense systems based on Ukraine's experience are gaining strategic autonomy by reducing their dependence on external sources. The counterpart to this technological superiority on the Russian front is complete systemic paralysis. The Russian command structure can no longer devise a plan in the face of Ukraine's perfect resource management. These strikes, which have lasted for 7 days not only on the front lines, but also in Leningrad, Kursk, and other strategic regions, are shattering Russia's superpower image even in the eyes of its own people. The propaganda war has now slipped beyond the Kremlin's control. No censorship mechanism can hide the Ukrainian drones buzzing in the sky. As we see in military analyses, the fact that Russia's latest offensive efforts have melted away upon hitting Ukraine's steel wall cannot be explained solely by a shortage of ammunition. This is a war of will, and Ukraine has cemented this will by producing its own systems. Kyiv is no longer asking its allies, "What can you give us?" but rather, "What can we share with you?" This shift in tone is the greatest geopolitical discovery of 2026. In conclusion, as of April 1st, 2026, the world is no longer merely observing a Ukraine-Russia war. The world is witnessing how a digital and asymmetric military revolution, led by Ukraine, is being implemented on a global scale, how it is being taught to allies, and how it leaves enemies helpless. Kyiv's technological and strategic success serves as the founding document of the new world order. What do you think? How will Ukraine's transformation into the Middle East's new military mentor escalate the pressure on Russia? Is Kyiv's declaration of this technological freedom the true key to ending the war? I look forward to your valuable insights in the comments. I'm Charlie from the Mr. Geopol team. Stay safe.